Thank you very much, Veronica. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this event, of the meeting, to Veronica, particularly to Marina, to Hector, and to the University of San Martin. It's my pleasure to be here, and thanks for giving me the floor. So what I'm going to speak today is, I will just briefly introduce you the Center for European Studies at the Yerevan State University and give some information about the regional MA program in human rights and democratization in Eastern Partnership region, make some notes about the Eastern Partnership, when it was established, what was the aim, and to where it led to, and where is the Eastern Partnership program now. And then we'll go to the detailed information about the human rights and democracy, statistics in Eastern Partnership region, plus some other states who are somehow connected to this particular region. So CES, Center for European Studies, was established in 2006 with the assistance of European Union delegation in Armenia as an unique department of Yerevan State University. So it now offers interdisciplinary education on graduate level, on MA level, provides specialized interdisciplinary research, organize roundtables and guest lecturing seminars, serves as EU Information Center at the library of the Center for European Studies. By the way, the library is the richest in the South Caucasus. It has almost 700 to 1,000 name books from the European most respected publishing houses, and also from the United States. In the field of education, we are now providing, running two MA programs. One is the MA in European Studies, which, by the way, is the first interdisciplinary MA program in Yerevan, in Armenian educational system. We have introduced this new method of education and teaching, and we have established a new specialty of European Studies in Armenia, though it was not exist, and we did it. We make amendment in the government decision and include a new specialty in the list of specialties. The second regional masters is the one that we are here. The reason is the regional master program on human rights and democratization. It was established in 2010. By the 2013, it was 2-year MA program, but now it was harmonized with other running master programs, and now we have 1-year master program with 60 credits to give. Besides the education, we are doing also the research programs, and recently we have published our new research project, which is comparative analysis of the index of democracy level: Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and Moldova. The statistics and the figures that were revealed during this research would be presented later. The one I would like to speak about is the research on the political stability index of the South Caucasus in member states of Eurasian Economic Union and EU member states. Sincerely, the context of the research was to prove that Armenia has nothing to do in newly establishing Eurasian Economic Union, because scientifically to prove that the Eurasian Union member states like Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan are very unstable countries democratically, and rather than we go to the association agreement with European Union and showing the results in the figures, that it's really very bad choice if we choose to go to Eurasian Union, as it happened eventually. You know about this maybe. And also we have done a research on the economic aspect of the possibility of signing a DCFTA, Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Area Agreement with European Union, which was a part of association agreement, which was not signed, as you may know. And the others are the crisis influence on Armenian economy, EU foreign and security policy in South Caucasus, and Turkey-EU-Armenian relations, challenges and opportunities. It was done in 2009. And Yerevan State University Center for European Studies was the institution that has resources and potential to organize meetings with the high-ranked officials of European Union. In 2003, December, the President of European Commission, Barroso, visited to Yerevan, and the center was asked by Ministry of Foreign Affairs and EU delegation to organize a meeting with the President of the European Commission with the representatives of NGOs, of diplomatic missions, academia, and students. And also the Herman Van Rompuy, the President of the European Council, visited to Yerevan, and he has organized a conference on that event and invited almost all academic people and NGOs to participate in this conference. Well, Rompuy has a welcoming note and was present in this conference. So I will now speak about the Regional Master Program in Human Rights and Democratization. Now we currently have 4 universities in our network. Yerevan State University is the grant holder, and Belarusian State University, Georgian University of name after Ivan Javashvili, and Ukrainian University, Taras Shevchenko National University. As you may see, these are the countries of Eastern Partnership. And there are 6 countries from which 4 are participating in our regional master program, and 2 of them are missing. One missing country is Moldova, which is very easy to bring back because initially they were part of this MA program, but due to some technical problems they left for a limited period, and they will be back. And the second country is Azerbaijan, which is not participating, though we would very much like to see them in our network. But as you may know, the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan does not allow us to take any essential measures to bring this country into our system and to work with them, because I cannot even imagine how it's possible to have Azerbaijani students in Armenia or Armenians in Baku, in Azerbaijan. So due to, given the fact that the recent escalation of the conflict, it took place from 2nd to 5th of April, maybe you know about this, all world media reported about this escalation where some 300 people were killed during this conflict, and it's like a frozen one, but it is, in reality, it is not frozen, it's just a bit forgotten one. And the status quo was established. We will speak about this, I think, later on, if we will have questions about that. And what I would like to speak about is the huge potential to expand this MA program to the regions which are not covered currently by the European Union granted program on human rights and democratization. That is Russia, Central Asia, and Iran. After lifting the sanction from Iran, Iran is now a very interesting target for education in the field of human rights and democracy. So I would like to bring to your attention both to EU and global campus as well as to European Union that we can think now on having Iranian university in our network, also having some Iranian students studying in this MA program and sending our students to Iran, with the university establishing a specialized module in Iran, so that we will bring qualified education to the country where democracy and human rights are considered as a big threat to national security. But no situation is being changed, so we can just take the advantages of this and think about expanding the program. Also, we should think about Russia, because Russia is left out from the regional MA programs, because no any program is working with Russian universities, but I think this particular program in Eastern Partnership region can become a bridge that could connect global campus with the Russian universities. And also Central Asia, I'm a bit I don't believe that EU will go to establish a new MA program in Central Asia, though this is a big region with almost 9 big countries like Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan. So I think they need democracy very much, education in democracy. So we can think about having some universities also from this region. And this, of course, this idea in the process of implementation will entail some financial implications. So we should think about this, how to which extent it will be possible, and how we can bring it about. Facts and figures on the MA in Human Rights and Democratization is that we have already graduated 4 cohorts. Current cohort has 22 students. Program has 92 alumni from over 14 countries. And where they are working now, how they employed, around 25% of alumni are self-employed, founders of NGOs, training centers, think tanks, youth organizations which deal with human rights and democratization, are employed at state bodies, ministries, agencies, departments, ombudsman office, civil society organization, and academic sphere. As you can see here, the countries from where we have students mostly. As you can see, the majority are coming from Armenia. Then we have Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine. These are the partner countries. And besides these partner universities, we had students from Russia, Lithuania, Poland, Serbia, Bulgaria, even Spain from students, and also Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. So Central Asia is not out of the program, though we don't have any partnership with any university in this region, but students are applying, and we are having them studying in our master program. So these are some photos from of our students and when they were graduating. So now a bit information about the region where we represent is the post-Soviet Union. So as you may know, in 1991, Soviet Union was collapsed and dissolved, and for former 15 republics of Soviet Union became independent countries till 1991. In Armenia is one of them, and you can see here the Eastern Partnership countries almost are covering the eastern border of European Union. And that's why EU launched a new program. Besides the European Neighborhood Policy, they established the Danish and Sweden and Polish initiative to launch a new cooperation project named as Eastern Partnership. So Eastern Partnership is one that brought dramatic changes in our region and influenced the whole geopolitical process in the world. Maybe you should know that in 2013, when in Vilnius summit, it was envisaged to sign association agreements with all 6 countries participating in Eastern Partnership Program. The EAP has started in 2009, where all 6 countries were invited, and including Belarus and Azerbaijan. As you know, Belarus is now under sanctions imposed by European Union. Azerbaijan is being criticized by European organization and United States, also the human rights structures, on the massive and gross violation of human rights and restriction of free media, control over the country, of the very weak civil society. But all these countries were invited, and finally when they launched this Eastern Partnership Program, which was planned to end with signing the association agreement, which will have 2 basic components. One is the political association, and second was the deep and comprehensive free trade area agreement. So both these agreements would bring Eastern Partnership countries closer to European Union, and customs tariffs should be abolished, almost 90% of goods, for the free movement of goods, and also visa facilitation. And but before Vilnius, Armenia announced about refusing to sign association agreement, though the treaty was almost ready and it could be signed every moment. But Armenia announced that we cannot be in one security system and integrate into another economic system. So it means that Armenia, being part of Russia-led security organization, cannot be part of the economic integration led by the West. And announced about the decision to join customs union, Russia-led customs union, when then transformed into Eurasian Economic Union. Now, as you know, Armenia is a part of this Eurasian Economic Union, with all grave results, because of the economy is almost to the collapse, and the foreign trade has been decreased by 80%. So that's also the reason of the Russian inflation of the Russian currency, almost 250%, and the oil price went down. You know that from 120 it became almost 25, 30, even $35 for one barrel, and all this influenced the economic process. And Ukraine is the one, I think, that we all know about, that how it changed the whole geopolitical structure in Europe in terms of security. The annexation of Crimea, the revolution in Ukraine, the Euromaidan, as it used to be called, brought a major dramatic changes both inside the country and outside of it. As you may know, Russia reacted very aggressively, and Russia managed and succeed in pressing on Armenia to change the position and not to sign the agreement, but to go to the newly establishing economic integration unit as Eurasian Economic Union. But Russia was on the way to do the same. But people who were just claiming from President Yanukovych to implement what he has promised during this electoral campaign is to sign association agreement. But Yanukovych president refused to sign it, saying that we will postpone the signature. Of course we will sign, but nobody believed. And then the revolution happened, and almost 120 or 30 people were killed during this revolution, and massive. And finally, the political authority was changed, and Yanukovych escaped from the country. New elections were held, and new parliament was elected. And the president now is acting. And Russia's reaction was very aggressive, and annexation of Crimea happened. Maybe you can remember all about this. And Russia and the European Union with the United States imposed the very grave sanctions on Russia. So now this is something that is changing geopolitics in the world, in whole world. Now I will just add some information about the Eastern Partnership countries and the EU. Belarus, Ukraine population, Belarus is 9 million, Ukraine is 45 million, including Crimea. And also eastern part of Ukraine, Donetsk and Lugansk, which have organized a referendum and organized about their independence, then joining to how it was called, Novorossiya. They call this unit. They are going to establish something like Novorossiya, which will be out of Ukraine, but a new like a state or some state-like institution. Organization. Moldova population is 3.5 million, Armenia 3.2 million, Georgia 4.4, and Azerbaijan 9.2 million. EU trade with EAP countries is 75.100 million euros per year, and total 2.13%. So labor migrants are mostly, if you can see that the color is orange, is going to Russia, and the black color migrants are going to European Union. You will see that almost 70% of migrants of Armenia are preferring to work in Russia rather than to go to EU. The same situation is also going with Azerbaijan, with Belarus, but the situation is changing with Georgia, as you know, because of the 5-day conflict between Georgia and Russia. So Georgia is becoming like a not friendly state for Russia, and Russians are considered as an aggressor inside the Georgian society. So that's why they prefer not to go to Russia to work, but rather than to go to European Union. Also Moldovan and Ukrainian migrants. Progress towards EU standards, the leader is Moldova, Ukraine is following, and Georgia is the third place. Armenia is in 4, Azerbaijan and Belarus like the most being behind of the race. So ties with the EU, so growing political, economic, and social ties between Eastern Partnership countries. Armenia, so the leading again leader is Moldova, then Ukraine, Georgia. Like all statistical data is showing the same result. That Moldova is a leader, being the most close to European Union, then Ukraine as a country who is striving to become a member of European Union and to join NATO security system. This is something that makes Russia very nervous in terms of if they could imagine for a second that Ukraine can join to NATO and NATO missiles will stand in the frontier of Russia on the eastern border, they will get crazy on this idea. So there's the most information about Eastern Partnership. So Russia with European Union, there's something like interesting picture you can see here. Are they partners or rivals? I think, in my opinion, and all respective analysis shows that the process is going towards the war for Europe between United States and Russia. So Russia wanted to bring back Europe to its geopolitical interest while having the conflict with the United States. But EU, as you know, preferred to stay with United States and go against Russian politics towards its neighbors. So Russia left alone in this process, and no any ally is working with him. So that's why now they think about to establishing some other ties, but without lifting the sanctions, because the always prolongation of the sanctions by the European Union and United States does not give any chance, any room for bring relations back as it was before the crisis in Ukraine. So the situation a bit with very, let's say, not dangerous, not dangerous, but relatively tensed. So the tension is still remaining. And it's very early to speak about the breaking the ice because of ongoing process. Also, the Syrian crisis and Russian position in this regard, and also what's going on now also in Nagorno-Karabakh and the Russian position in all these issues in the post-Soviet area. So you can see here how Russia is blackmailing, like to say blackmailing European Union with its natural resources. And you can see here that almost 30% of EU gas comes from Russia. So that's a very good leverage to press on European Union states, saying that if you will not do what we want, we will cut your gas, as it happened in 2008 and 2009, where the Eastern Europe was frozen during the winter time. Russia closed. Russia cut the gas supply to the Europe, and finally these countries were left out of heating systems, and it was very cold winter and people were freezing. So Russia showed that he's not kidding, he will do this all, what he's saying. And so European Union is now considering the possibility of diversification of energy resources supply. And that's why they are now thinking, they used to think about the Nabucco project, maybe you know about this. They are now thinking about the Trans-Caspian gas supply system, and now considering the possibility of bringing natural gas from Iran resources, and from Qatar is one of the richest countries with the natural gas. And all this is about to decrease the dependence of European Union from Russian natural resources. And as you may know, the oil of natural gas mostly depends and linked with the price of oil. So if the price of oil goes down, the same is happening with the natural gas. And natural gas now price is getting low, and budget incomes with almost 56% of Russian Federation budget is coming from the export of natural resources. So it shows that Russian economy is very weak, and they cannot resist any major economic challenge, because if the natural resources price is going down, so it means that the income of the budget is the same situation. So that's a very grave situation for Russia, and now Russia is undergoing the worst economic crisis. And if we comparing with the beginning of the 90s, when the oil price was $15 per barrel, now at $30. So they are a bit in the better situation. But in any case, the situation is very difficult, and crisis is going to be deepened. There's a recession in the Russian economy. So our research on democracy levels on Eastern Partnership and other post-Soviet countries. These analyses of political, economic, social, educational, and health factors at the index of democracy level in post-Soviet 8 countries show that Moldova has the highest and Azerbaijan has the lowest level, democracy level studied countries. Democracy level of Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine that have chosen the vector of European integration as a signed association agreement with European Union are higher than of member states of Eurasian Economic Union. As you know, these are the Armenia, Belarus, Russia, and Kazakhstan. And also Kyrgyzstan recently joined this organization. In this index of democracy, based on calculations accumulated by the researchers, data obtained from a cross-country analysis, so figure below you can see all the study states are partially democratic, but only partially. Moldova has the highest indicator, is 53.4. Georgia slightly yields to Moldova for 8.1, and then Ukraine 45.6. Armenia received 42.5 points. Azerbaijan, the lowest, at 37.5. Together with Kazakhstan, it approaches the category of non-democratic political system. In comparison to 2012, the democracy level index in all states went down in 2013. Belarus and Kazakhstan were exceptions, and Russia recorded an insignificant positive change. Belarus improved its status, and by the way, this all is going before the Crimea crisis, before what happened after the independence of Ukraine. Like to say, we would qualify this like independence, because going out of Russian control means that we're gaining independence. So formally, we all are independent, but in substance, we're very much dependent from Russian political and geopolitical plans and wills. So we must supply. We must be on the same line. We must keep the same strategy, voting on the same nature in all parliamentary and ministerial agencies, the Council of Europe, Parliamentary Assembly, the OSCE. So Armenia has the same voting scheme as Russia has. So like resembles me the colonial system when the master country has a colony and they are working as the master country will ask or demand. Values of the main variables here, you can see the political stability from 0 to 100. Armenia has 49. Georgia 3, the Azerbaijan 33, 22 Russia, 46 Belarus, 34 and 6 Kazakhstan, 21.3 Ukraine, and 45.5 Moldova. As you can see, Armenia is the politically stable country among all this, because all the political system is under strict control, and relatively free political system fits in all measures and strategies that the political leadership of the country is making and fixing for this. And that means that no any major changes happening in our country, except some rallies or some demonstration that's just asking for some more liberties, more freedoms. And if we are comparing the situation with Georgia, a politically very unstable country, though they are now going towards a European model of governance, where the system is dominant and not the person. In the contrary, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, and Russia are mostly person-dominant systems, where the system is being adapted to a person. In Georgia, like in Europe or United States, the system is becoming dominant, and every person is going to take the leadership, must adapt its policy to all the system's criteria and requirements. Rule of law are, so you can see the figures. I think we'll speak about the three of them: political stability, rule of law, and freedom of the press. These main three indicators will show that to which extent these countries are democratic and not democratic. Rule of law index 45%, Armenia 53%, Georgia 30%, Azerbaijan 24%, as you can see, is really very interesting. Russia 20%, 20.64 points. Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan 3, Ukraine 23, and Moldova 42. Freedom of press, Armenia is 62, Georgia 47, Azerbaijan 84, Russia 81, 93 Belarus, 85 Kazakhstan, 63. I mean, the figure goes high means that the freedom of press doesn't work. So it means that, for example, 93 point for Belarus means that it's very controlled press, and there is no free media. There is no free press in this country. So for Armenia, it's only 62. For Georgia is the most press-free country. Free press country is 47 points. So political factors index, you can see here how it goes, and the research has been done 2012-13. Currently we are doing the same research for 2014 and 15, so the statistical data will be available for the analysis, so that we can complete the research. And I think and I hope that for the next our meeting in Venice for September, we will have printed version of the second research, and we will bring to your attention. So thank you very much. I think it was a bit long, but I succeed. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Veronica. I'm very glad to be here today on behalf of Bologna and Sarajevo University. I also would like to thank very much San Martin University, and especially the staff and the management of the Center for International Political Studies. Your welcoming and the management of the event was extremely pleasant and warm. Thank you very much again. Now, I was given the post to explain very briefly the status and the pulse of human rights and democratization process in the Balkan region in 20 minutes, half an hour. Well, that's a huge endeavor. I will try to squeeze it in 20 minutes to leave space also to the explanation of our program, how the ERMA program is taking part in the stabilization of the region, in the reconciliation process. Therefore, I will divide my presentation in three parts. I will, at the beginning, give you the context, the geopolitical, the geographical, the political, and social context of the region. I guess this will be very interesting, especially for the students of the Buenos Aires Master who are attending the Global Classroom in Venice in May. Later, I will explain briefly the legacy of the geographical and historical and political outcomes in the region when it comes to the challenges to human rights. Finally, I will mention few future perspectives in the region and the role of the program in this huge endeavor. Okay, it is always told that the history, political landscape in the Balkan region is very difficult to be understood, which is probably true. However, with a few maps, we can try to simplify it. Let me start from the geographical background. So the southeastern European region, it is also called the Balkan region. That's a simplification, I would say a geographical and morphological mistake, which is given by the fact that the word Balkan in Turkish language means mountain. So the region is pretty much mountainous, this is true. However, the mountain Balkan is situated in Sofia in Bulgaria. So as for a kind of geographical osmosis, the word is used for the entire region. So you can use either Southeastern European region and the Balkan region. As for the European landscape, we used to divide between Western Balkans and Eastern Balkans. To simplify, the Eastern Balkans are Moldova, Romania, and Bulgaria. I also include Moldova, which is sometimes included in this geographical sphere of the Balkans. Other times, especially when the European Union starts new projects as the Eastern Partnership, then it's shifted to the neighbors. So there are a few countries which are sort of buffer between one macro region and the other. It is pointless to, let's say, to list the countries one by one. However, the countries range from Slovenia, which is bordering with Italy, to Bulgaria, which is bordering with Turkey. So the geographical extension is wide. The history of the region is controversial. It is a history that we can summarize starting from the 19th century. Why from this historical point? Because that's a history of partition, occupation, colonization, someone say, and cultural stratification. This is crucial to be understood if we want to understand further the dynamics that today the region is still facing. So here is a map of from the beginning of the 19th century, when the region was contended between the Austrian-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire. So I believe that for overseas students, I mean, the familiarity with these issues maybe is less than students from the region. However, as you know, Europe was, I mean, after the Romanticism, nationalistic claims started in Europe, and these were facing the extension of the empires. Especially in the Balkan region, you had the occupation from north to south of the Austrian Empire and south to north of the Ottoman Empire. The empires that were living in the 19th century, two very different phases of their development, because the Austrian Empire was developing and the Ottoman Empire was demising. So actually this is the key, together with the influence of Russia as the motherland of the Slavic populations in the region. Here you have this geographical partition, the occupation. Some historians, they call it a colonization process, which is debatable, but still it's one branch of the regional studies. And of course, once again, cultural stratification. Cultural means religious stratification based on the ethnic stratification. This geographical division impacted on has to face the outcomes of the Romanticism, nationalist theories, and claims for self-determination, which appeared in Europe in the 19th century, and sorry for the historical cut and the simplification, but ended up in Sarajevo with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, which was the heir to the throne of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire in 1914. Every primary school book history says that this is the reason why the First War broke up. It's a very strong simplification. However, the point is this: the heir to the throne of the Austrian Empire, Austrian-Hungarian Empire, was perceived as the occupator. So after centuries of partition, occupation, and once again colonization of the region, there were several regional movements aiming to achieve independence over the others, over the occupator. An exponent of this organization, a Serbian one, called the Black Hand in English, widely known as Gavrilo Princip, was the one who shot the heir to the throne. Therefore, the region was once again under the spotlight of further occupation, because the First World War erupted. What is the outcome of the First World War? In European history, we always say that the First World War led to the Second World War. The First World War was supposed to solve all the geographical claims and finally put an end to continental conflicts. This didn't happen. The Balkan region was once again affected by new partition, new occupation, new colonization, especially by Germany and Italy. As you can see in this map, Italy actually had the control over today Montenegro, Albania, part of Kosovo, while Germany Nazi Germany had the control over Slovenia, Croatia, which boundaries were extended during the occupation. The result of this was once again the attempt to free the land from the occupator, or to create, thanks to the assets of the occupator, a new motherland. And this resulted in a civil war. The civil war that I can simplify as a war between, a monk versus Ustasha, which were the fascist Croats, supported by Germany and Italy, the royalist Chetnik Serbs, which were a fringe that was faithful to the monarchy in Serbia, and the most important actor, the winning one, the communist partisans, and in brackets I put their ethnical affiliation, because that's very important. You will see soon, but this you know for sure. The ethnical division in the region are the driving factor for political development. So Croats, Serbs, and Yugoslavs. What is the difference between being a Serb, being a Croat, being a Yugoslav? Yugoslavia means the land of the southern Slavs. The southern Slavs are Slavs which are living from Slovenia southward. Of course, this terminology entails the idea of regionalism. The Balkan region wasn't always a region of divisions. Actually, this is the historical idea that Europe has about the Balkan region. However, a set of very advanced and pioneeristic attempts to create a regional cooperation, a federation. The first European international parliament was attempted to be created in the Balkans after the demise of the Ottoman Empire. When the Ottoman Empire withdrew from the region, the countries, the entities of the region which were finally freed, they discussed and almost realized a common intent for having a regional parliament. This would have been almost 1 century, 60 years before the European Parliament, would have been something historical. This didn't happen because the region was once again under the spotlight of foreign intervention. This resulted, as I mentioned, in a civil war. Civil war is a broad concept. However, never forget that civil war moves from the idea that there is voluntarism behind that. Civilians, citizens, they have the volunteer, the will to participate in a struggle for the nationhood. This happened in the civil war that I'm referring to now. This didn't happen later on. I will explain you why. What is the result of the civil war is the victory of one of these actors, which were the communist partisans led by Josip Broz Tito, and the creation of Yugoslavia in 1945. It would be too long to explain why. I mean, how come that this actor won the civil war and how was supported by Western allies. However, Yugoslavia was the first realization of this attempt to create an integrated region. So under the idea of communism and international socialism, the countries, the entities, when you refer to the Balkans, never mention countries, nation, always say entities so that you can avoid issues with other academics. So since you're going to the global classroom, take note. This region was composed by 6 republics and 2 provinces. I will explain you later which is the ethnical component. The features are the fact that Yugoslavia embraced a hybrid socialist model, which is very interesting because actually they were kicked out from the Cominform in 1948 because of different geopolitical views if compared to USSR. However, Yugoslavia represented a pioneeristic and very diverse idea of socialism by which Tito, which was the president of Yugoslavia, was called, historically called the Martin Luther of communism. Why? Because the economic setup of the country foreseen certain measures which were unconceivable for a radical application of socialism. Those are, for instance, the access to foreign credit. Yugoslavia took part in a Marshall Plan, which is extremely meaningful in terms of geopolitics. And the adoption of the self-management, this means that management of the companies, of the public companies, can actually have control over the output and generate a surplus. This was inconceivable for the rest of the communist landscape. And the farming was privatized 85%. This to give more incentive to the quantity of the output because of the need of developing this field of the economics. All this, especially relying on the foreign loans, produced high standard of life, high if compared to other countries of Southern Europe, Southern Italy, Spain, Portugal, and especially if compared to the other countries of the communist bloc. That's very meaningful. You will see the outcomes of the last war, what was the result in terms of economic development and backwardness of the region, because this region was targeted from the Central European communist countries as the point of reference. I mean, Czechs, Polish, Slovaks, they were going to spend the holidays in Yugoslavia because the quality of life was higher. The situation the switched completely 40 years later. Also, because of this performance, Yugoslavia became the leader of the non-aligned movement, which was a movement created by Yugoslavia together with countries from the countries in development, a movement which is still actually existing, although lost completely its relevance. But this gives you the idea of how Yugoslavia was internationally recognized as a third way, a third model between communism per se and capitalism. Yugoslavia was featured by a great cultural diversity. 7 languages, 2 alphabets, 24 ethnicities, 23 million inhabitants. Imagine this proportion, 24 ethnicities out of 33 million inhabitants. And especially the highest number of mixed marriages in Europe. And especially the well-rooted culture of sharing traditions and interreligious traditions between families. I mean, families would be composed by a Muslim and a Christian Catholic, therefore having 2 weddings, therefore having double festivities. This is a wonderful tradition, which is actually the outcome of the way that Ottoman Empire used to rule the occupied lands or conquered lands or the colonized lands, always to refer to the debate. This unfortunately was partially lost. I will explain you why later. Yugoslavia didn't last forever. I mean, few things last forever in geopolitics, and Yugoslavia actually broke up 20 years ago, which is the reason why actually now we have a regional master program in the region, which is characterized by a post-conflict situation. What is the rationale behind that? Yugoslavia had actually grown a huge debt toward International Monetary Fund because of the Marshall Plan, because of the loans that got from Western allies. This provoked in the 70s a great drop in living standards. Therefore, the growth of animosities toward the citizens, which have been accustomed to very good life standards, especially in certain of the republics. In a domino effect, this provoked national economic protectionism, which is called in the region national national protectionism, because each of the republics, they were afraid that their market can be overtaken by the neighbors. So of course they closed the borders, which is they doubled the taxation for trade. On the other side, on the political side, the great inefficiency of the governance, which is actually this is blinking the eye to the European Union situation nowadays, because Yugoslavia had a very bureaucratic and complex way of agreeing on policies, which recalls very much to the European one. Each single entity could pose the veto. Therefore, the negotiations were generally very long, very difficult, and the compromises tough to be reached. Just think about Europe today with the migrant crisis. what is the outcome of this? Of course, the rise of ethno-nationalism. Why? Because I have to defend my land, my country, my people. But this process is mistakenly explained as a bottom-up approach. I mean, bottom-up process generally in history. You know, the Balkan region has been affected by the reporting of non-academics during the 90s. So the widespread idea that people is responsible for the fate of the region. However, the ethno-nationalism is the result of elite decision. Ethno-nationalism has been the mechanism through which the federation could be divided. And still, economic reasons are there at the very top of the chain. Why? Because once the entities decided to split, well, this foreign debt that have grown had to be divided. And then, of course, then you start bargaining about who has grown more debt. And then over this problem, actually not finding agreements, well, this was one of the driving reasons why the region collapsed. So the top-down imposed, I mean, engineered ethno-national policies, also going together with the revival, historical reinterpretation over the past, especially bringing back medieval plans for the extension of the nation, which can be summarized in the will to achieve homogeneity, which can be also summarized with this very famous sentence that was proclaimed in Serbia. Serbia is where even just one Serb lives. This was applied for every entity. So the idea that we have to reshape the borders, customizing them on the ethnical distribution of the inhabitants. So historical manipulation and revisionism. The demise of Yugoslavia followed this chronology. In 1991, most of the republics, all the republics, apart from the autonomous province, they declared unilaterally the independence, being recognized very quickly by especially European countries. So this process led to armed conflict, a very quick one, a very short one, 1 week. 10 people died in Slovenia, and then 2 bloody wars in Croatia and Bosnia-Herzegovina, which are unfortunately worldwide known as, long and bloody conflicts. UN forces, as you know, were deployed, although there was not a military intervention, unlike in the next stage of the conflicts, which endured in the region until from 1999 until in 1999, when also Kosovo claims independence over Serbia, and then at that point NATO decided for a military intervention, therefore a conflict, therefore a bombing of capital cities, military targets, and of course this involved losses over the citizens and civilians. So the demise of the region ends up when also Kosovo acquires, when Montenegro peacefully, after negotiations, acquires independence, and Kosovo finally unilaterally declares independence in 2008. Still, 5 European countries don't recognize Kosovo. Of course, are the countries which have great minority issues within their borders, and Russia as a permanent UN country. If you remember this map of the ethnic composition of Yugoslavia, then think about this. The outcome of the demise of Yugoslavia is the map on the left. So the creation of new states, entities, as it is. On the right, you can see the results of the conflict. The results of the violence. So to be extremely even morbid, if I can, but actually the war managed to achieve the mission that elites had, meaning they want to homogenize the territories. So Slovenia and Croatia are land of Croats. Serbia is pretty much the land of Serbs, apart from the entities, the Hungarian minority in the north and few other exceptions. Montenegro is also pretty much homogeneous, apart from Albanian minorities in the south bordering with Kosovo. Kosovo is homogeneous, apart from the few municipalities in the north where Serbs lives. Bosnia-Herzegovina, out of this, is a country which has been further divided in three entities, sticking on the ethnic component. So Bosnia-Herzegovina has one federation where the Croats and the Muslim lives, and one other entity where the Serbs, and when I say Serbs, Croat, or Muslim, I always think about, I always refer to the religious affiliation. So in the Balkans, the idea that your citizenship goes together with your religious and ethnic affiliation is still, it's not constitutional. It's something written in Constitution of Bosnia-Herzegovina. So what is the, in light of that, the landscape, as you can see, is extremely controversial. It is very controversial. That's why the challenges to the human rights and democratization in the region are many. And although the conflicts ended up 20 years ago, there is still a lot to be achieved. It is difficult to, to sum up which are the most important challenges. However, according to our point of view, we can categorize them in three branches. The first one is the regional reconciliation process, meaning dealing with the past. The region was characterized by conflicts. There were 4 conflicts in 1 century, and especially the last conflict was driven by this ethnic divide. And as you know, war atrocities. So the region, just to go back to the map, the region has been reshaped out of the war atrocities. This redistribution of the ethnicities has been achieved through war atrocities. So you can imagine which is the legacy of this. To give you an example, the Serbian component of Bosnia-Herzegovina has been created literally out of the ethnic cleansing. Now it is an homogeneous component just because people which were living there have been killed or forced to move. Therefore, the constituent principle of this entity is the one that, yes, it's based on genocide. This, of course, has huge repercussions on the idea of reconciliation, which is a term that you can hear every day in daily life in Sarajevo, especially, which is the city where we develop our program. What is the rationale behind the idea of reconciliation? What is the problem? What is the threat to reconciliation? This continuous abuse of national rhetoric by the political elites. So this continuous will to maintain the cleavage between the heroes, the criminals, the perpetrators, and the victims. Just for the, hate speech and political hatred is still in the Balkans the most efficient political engine, which is used and abused. In this regard, it's impossible for me to avoid to mention the role of transitional justice and especially the role of the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, which is the legal entity created at international level to prosecute and punish the perpetrators of war crimes in the conflict. The work of the tribunal, it is quite controversial. It is agreed. There are different views on the outcomes. However, not judging on the technicalities of the processes, but judging on the impact on the reconciliation, clear that a tribunal has not the post to achieve reconciliation. It's not its mandate to achieve reconciliation, nor that people should await for a tribunal to solve ethnic disputes. However, the popular feelings toward the tribunal are that the justice was achieved in a partial and somehow partisan way. I'm not referring what is my understanding of the issue, I'm just referring which is the people reaction toward the sentences. what I want to stress is that the ICTY is, of course, a very pop actor. I use pop just to make it very clear that it is rare that an international tribunal has such an effect on domestic policies and domestic feelings. So a few days ago, for instance, that is something that everybody probably have heard, there was the sentence for the Karadzic verdict, Karadzic case. Karadzic was the political leader of the Serbs in Bosnia and Herzegovina. He was indicted for war crimes, for genocide, for war atrocities, for breach on the war customs, and so that's an example of what happened. I mean, the political figure was finally sentenced. Was sentenced 40 years. This is something which should suffice, because it's why, I mean, of course, the tribunal can sentence a person to life. However, this managed to create animosity in all the components of the region, because, of course, the victims say, but if this person, thinking that the genocide is the maximum that you can achieve in terms of war crimes, why this person didn't get the life sentence? So, animosity from the victims. But even in the country, I mean, of the ethnic belonging of the sentence, of course, there is the widespread perception that the tribunal is judging pretty much the Serbs and acquitting the other responsible. Once again, especially because Professor Novak would for sure have something to comment on that, I'm just reporting, which is the regional popular perception. So the idea that this tribunal, which has finalized his job, I mean, just few processes are still, few trials are still ongoing, didn't really help in reconciling the region, because managed to spread animosity toward all the ethnic components, which is quite serious actually, and this will probably have a huge legacy. Also because if you don't solve ethnic animosities, these will be transferred to next generation. So you're postponing other 20 years the issue. Apart from reconciliation, which I would say it's the most important, there is a respect of civil, political, and economic, social, and cultural rights. Still, a lot has to be done in terms of terms of granting ethnic minorities their right. The most important case in this regards is the so-called Sejdić-Finci case in Bosnia and Herzegovina. As I mentioned before, Bosnia and Herzegovina is a country which constituent people are clearly stated in the constitution, so Serbs, Croats, and Bosniaks. So the nationality sticks on the ethno-national belonging, religion, and ancestry. Therefore, if you don't belong to this, to one of these parts, you simply cannot have access to the political rights, active and passive political rights. So these two intellectuals, namely one Jew and one from the Roma community, they tried to candidate themselves for the political elections, and they were rejected simply because they don't belong to the constitutional, to the constituent people of the country. This has created huge troubles in the European integration process, which was stuck in for years, until when European Commission said, what I will also endorse later, that okay, let's move on the economic social rights, and then let's return on the chapter on the civil political rights, otherwise we will never find a compromise. Also, gender minorities are threatened in the Balkan region. No country has laws on LGBT rights, on homosexual marriage, apart from Croatia, which is actually trying to implement it now, but it's going to be a long journey. In this regards, also I have to talk about, I have to mention the women rights and women and violence against women, which is still widespread in the region because of the still strong patriarchal mindset. Environmental rights, this is also almost completely disregarded, although, for instance, Montenegro, which is a very young country, I mean, got independence in 2006, is the first ecologic country by constitution in the world. but this stays clearly on paper, because then environmental policies are extremely low. Bosnia-Herzegovina is characterized by very high degree of pollution, which is creating huge problems to the Health National Service. Violence against women I mentioned. Aside from that, still remains huge political cleavages, both on the side of the self-determination and the recognition issue. Kosovo hasn't been recognized both by Serbia and by Bosnia-Herzegovina. And this creates huge problems, because, I mean, Kosovo does not exist for Bosnia-Herzegovina. I'll give you an example. If we have an application from a Kosovo student, the local Minister of Education will not recognize his or her diploma, because the student this country cannot issue a diploma, not existing. Therefore, this really compromises a lot of the daily life, of citizens' life situations. And also Macedonia, which I didn't mention until now, because its independence was peaceful, has a long-standing and incredible issue of the name with Greece. You know, Macedonia is the name of is a historical name of a region between Greece and today Macedonia, and therefore Greece is preventing Macedonia to use name of Macedonia, and there is a UN resolution by which Macedonia has to use an acronym, which is FYROM, former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, which is an obstacle for the Euro-Atlantic integration, and it's basically an historical and political issue, which is giving the way for reinterpretation of historical legacy, manipulation, and also chauvinist attitudes towards the history, which is a masterpiece of the region, I would say. Claims for further independence. The region is not settled. I mean, still there are claims for independence, at least two. Border disputes between Slovenia on the shores. They have a border dispute, and also Montenegro now, just to put a bit of salt on the political dynamics of the region, has claimed the change of borders with Kosovo. Now, further perspectives out of that. European Union decided to reshape the policy toward Bosnia, which is quite meaningful in regional terms, because Bosnia is the country where the development of the integration process is particularly slow, and the democratization also is very slow. Therefore, from stressing on the political and civil rights, European Union decided to switch to grant economic social rights. What is the problem? What is the problem? European Union, as you know, was a very inspiring process. As Romano Prodi used to say, was a sexy process, meaning that had a huge appeal over the neighbor countries. Professor Timothy Grantonesh used to say that Europe is the first knocking empire. Knocking empire was a figure, I mean, an image by which, for the first time in history, you have an empire or international entity to which the other neighbors they're asking to join. Well, this changed tremendously in the last years. Why? Because European Union is losing popularity, is losing appeal, because this promise for change never arrived, never touched the Balkan region. Yes, Slovenia entered the region, the European Union in 2003, and Croatia, after a very long integration process, also joined in 2014. However, the other countries are very far from attaining the standards that European Union expects. This is just postponing these improvements to finally arrive and people to benefit from them. So there is a growing popular distrust toward international institutions, starting from European Union, a huge feeling of being peripheral and forgotten. And I'm sorry that there is not the ambassador today, ambassador of European Union, otherwise I would have very gladly opened a discussion on the European Union being the promoter of human rights, which it is, otherwise we wouldn't be here today. However, it is tough to be consistent when you implement immigration policies as the one that is deploying now. and still claim to be the champion of human rights. This being a space of confrontation, we could discuss this. However, Europe has to keep on being the promoter of human rights, as it's doing through initiatives like the Global Campus. Also because other actors could overtake Europe in this regional cooperation, namely Russia, Turkey, China, and the Gulf countries. Few of those countries are arriving now in the region in terms of cooperation, economic cooperation. Others are reviving, they are coming back from the past, like Turkey and Russia especially. In these countries, they are, let's say, polished from these responsibilities over the lack of change. So they start from a very positive, more positive position, and are actually extending their influence in the region. Finally, the last slide. Out of all this, what is our regional program doing? As you know, ERMA was the first of the regional masters. After the headquarters in Venice, ERMA was the first one to be implemented. I have to stress the pioneeristic achievement that ERMA represents. Why? Because ERMA was conceived when the NATO bombing was ongoing in Serbia and in Kosovo. So if on one side the politics had to use the force to solve and settle down the cleavages, academics and scientists, they were sitting around the table and conceiving something which was extremely advanced. The idea to restart institutional dialogue, the idea to restart cooperation between and among institutions which ceased to cooperate for years. In Yugoslavia, academic institutions were of course cooperating. Then suddenly, from the 80s onward, the telephone lines were shut down. So the network that created ERMA is a network which was created by young scholars that had my age 20 years ago, that physically were allowing colleagues from the region to call each other, simply bypassing the shutdown. So our colleague from Zagreb would call Bologna, and in Bologna they would transfer the international call to Serbia, to Belgrade. This physically allowed the region to keep on cooperating at scientific level. Therefore, this of course, as a domino effect, this brought harmonization of academic standards. This allowed intercultural and intellectual confrontation. This means that straight after the war, we had students and scholars. Never forget that when we talk about these master programs, international programs, it's the students, but it's also the staff and program and professors. So you had Kosovar lecturers coming to teach in Sarajevo, having a conference with counterparts from Serbia, and students fueling debates coming from different countries and from different ethnicity. To give you this, we should use better, but actually the tutor office in Sarajevo, me and my two colleagues, we are the postcard of this, because we are one Muslim, one Catholic, and one Orthodox. So maybe we could use it. Also, the program has a strong position toward avoiding elitism, meaning that best program for the top of the top, for the elite of the country. Thanks to the scholarships that European Union grant us, we make the program available for everybody, so on the merit base. Therefore, if you're a talented student but you don't have the financial means, the program supports you. So we are not dividing society. We are trying not to divide societies in these regards. Also because in this way the program has a clear anti-creaming effect approach. The creaming effect is when you are training the trained. Just to improve the skills of those which are already skilled. So leaving back the others. The program has a great impact on the brain gain of the region. First of all, because many students are coming from the diaspora. Yugoslavs, Balkan region had a huge diaspora to Australia, to America, to Latin America. In Buenos Aires and Argentina, there is a huge Croat cohort, is well known. Many students came back to Europe to study ERMA because they felt that they lacked knowledge of the region. They wanted to study political sciences and human rights, coming back to their region of origin. Also, the program had huge effects on the civil society. Just to give a couple of examples, I can tell you for sure that all the gay pride parades organized in the region, with huge difficulties, are led by former ERMA students. I can say that in the last 2 years, there were huge protests in Montenegro and Podgorica, in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and in other cities of the country, and in Skopje, Macedonia, due to, once again, the lack of implementation of economic social rights. ERMA students were very often part of the leading bodies of these endeavors. And not the less, but actually ERMA provided human resources to the major human rights actors in the region. A proof is the one that in our internship allocation process, when we contact regional institutions, think tank, research centers, we very often get a response like, yes, with pleasure, because I did ERMA in 2001, so with pleasure we can host your student. So this, of course, creates a very solid network, which is based on competencies, skills, and of course friendship. And I stress friendship because all these endeavors, either in Sarajevo, in Buenos Aires, in Yerevan, in Sydney, in Pretoria, wouldn't be achieved without friendship and without human relations. So, to conclude, the process of democratization in the region, the reconciliation, the achievement of attainable life standards, as well as the major other economic, social, and cultural rights, but also the full implementation of civil and political rights, it is far from being a mission accomplished in the southern Eastern Europe. In this regard, Europe plays and has to keep on playing a pivotal role in the region. And it is very fortunate that endeavors like the Global Campus of Regional Masters has been launched. Thanks to this support, you can be sure that ERMA will proudly continue to educate generation of human rights defenders with the same passion and enthusiasm of the last 15 years, and will gladly host the next Global Campus event in 2016-17 in Sarajevo. Thank you very much.